Hello and welcome back to another video. Today here again on Forza Horizon 5 to look at the fourth and final brand new vehicle added as part of Series 19, which is this Cadillac CT4-V. It's available for 20 points in the spring season, so all you have to do is go in and do a few of these challenges like I have, and it will be yours. And like I said, it is the fourth brand new car. Last week we of course had the Lexus LC500, in autumn the Cadillac CT5-V, which is the slightly bigger version of this essentially, and in summer the Rimac Nevera. So four brand new vehicles, and if we look at coming soon, there are going to be new cars, of course the Stadium Oval, returning PR stunts, and a new collectible. One of those four new cars is the Huracan STO. We think another one is going to be the AMG GT Black Series, and there's going to be a couple more that we're unsure of, or whether they'll be brand new or returning. But yeah, very much looking forward to testing out some new cars next series as well. Like I say, this is essentially a smaller CT5 Blackwing that we got a couple of weeks ago. So what do I think of the CT5's smaller brother? Well, it has a 3-litre V6, or just over 3 litre, rather than the humongous and quite ridiculous V8 that the 5 had. This smaller engine only produces 472 horsepowers, in comparison to that car's 668 of them. It does mean we don't have that incredible V8 soundtrack with the supercharger whine of the 5, which is why we're not viewing this from bonnet cam. At which point I wonder, why would you buy this? What's the advantage of buying a big American car if it doesn't have a mad V8? Surely the reason you'd choose this over the European rivals is for that mad supercharged V8 noise, that really loud V8 soundtrack with the supercharger whine, like I say. So if it doesn't have that, what's the advantage of it? At which point you may as well get a European 6-cylinder. But being a smaller car than the CT5 does mean, and with the smaller engine, does mean it weighs less, but only by 100 kilos somehow. So you're not even saving that much weight over that car, really. But in theory it should handle slightly better with that slight weight reduction. But with that bigger power deficit, I think it'll be left in its bigger brother's dust a little bit. So yeah, like I say, I'm not really sure why you'd choose that over that. I mean, obviously this will be cheaper, but if you want a big American mad thing, you kind of want a V8, surely. But anyway, this is only rated at A-Class 760 from standard though, so there is a greater potential for upgrades. So it could be interesting once we get it into some races. Driving it here though, it felt very good. I did really enjoy this stock, more than I have in a lot of cars recently, if I'm being honest. It seemed to have just the right amount of grip to feel controllable whilst being playful if you pushed it like you saw out of that junction. And when we got onto the motorway, it got up to 198 miles per hour somehow. It's kind of a shame not to crack 200 when you get that close, but still, it's impressive for a smaller saloon. I think this is kind of more 3 Series size, where the CT-V was maybe almost more of a 5. But yeah, like I say, without the V8, a smaller size car, I don't know why you'd choose this over, for example, a 3 Series. But anyway, shall we see what options are available for it? So, like the CT5, there's no advanced painting options, but there are all of the same default colours. What I hadn't realised, and was actually pointed out to me, is that this stock colour isn't black, so my joke about the Rolling Stones song didn't really work last time. Anyway, that aside, is available in this very dark blue that may as well be black, the really cool bright orange, or I suppose not cool, it's orange, the blue's more cool. Anyway, the really nice orange that we put on the CT5, the really bright blue, which I rather liked, the metallic red, again, I particularly liked, and then a white and a metallic blue that I'm kind of less excited by. But yeah, I think again we'll probably put the orange on, at least for the time being. And what about the upgrades and visual mods then? Well, let's take a look at the aero first. There is a front splitter that's Forza Aero, but I think it looks slightly better than usual. You don't have the stupid red towing eye permanently there. I mean, it does look a bit ridiculous. Like, what are those canards up there actually going to do? So, we won't do that. But yeah, I think it looks better than a lot of Forza Aero does. In terms of rear aero, you've got your usual Forza wing and a wing delete if you want to remove the Blackwing's Blackwing, which is, of course, what it's named after. if you didn't know. In terms of engine conversions, interestingly, well, there's a few. There's 4 options. There's an 8.4 V10, a racing V8, and a 7.7 litre V12. But there's also this 6.2 litre V8 from the big Cadillac. So you get the supercharger wind back. And this, by the way, is the first car that that engine has been swappable into, with the other Cadillac, of course, only being added recently. So that is quite an interesting option, I think, because it means you have the smaller, slightly lighter car, although I have a feeling it might actually be heavier. No, it's still lighter than the big brother. So yeah, you have a smaller, slightly lighter car, but with the brilliant big engine, which probably wouldn't fit in reality, but given this is Forza, I quite like that that is an option at least. You've obviously then got your all-wheel drive conversions, you can bring your track width out, you can change your wheels, tyres, gearbox, clutch, transmission, driveline, brakes, suspension, anti-roll bars, weight reduction, roll cage, all of that sort of stuff, and all of your usual engine upgrades. Standard, it's of course turbocharged rather than supercharged, which means if you really want to, you can fit anti-lag, of course, but I think we've kind of grown out of that already. It was fun, a fun gimmick for the first few weeks, but yeah, I'm not going to do that. So I think we should find an A-class tune and go and do some racing. So, first off, I'm putting on this K1Z Bard tune, which is on sports suspension, which apparently it was on stock, but it's also on rally tyres and left rear-wheel drive, of course being a purist tune, but the bit I'm most interested in is the horsepower figure. It has 540, so it's still quite substantially lower than the CT5, so I might potentially come back, put the CT5 engine in, and see what it's like with that. I think that could be kind of interesting, because it's actually, when I swap that engine in, if I don't do any other upgrades, it's 2 PI lower than the CT5 was stock. So we've essentially got that engine and less weight, and that car seems reasonable. So we might try that after we've tried this tune. So we started off with a long sprint, which everything shot past me at the start of, and after a fairly average rest of the race, I finished just behind a murderous ice cream, which I should really have beaten if he hadn't been quite so murderous. So the first race wasn't great, but should really have been a podium if we think about it. The next one was Los Jardins, where it was briefly a Caddy 1-2-3, until a Doge of many speeds and no handling got involved in a very irritating fashion. Still, it was a third-place finish with a best lap of near as makes no difference, 56 dead, which wasn't too bad a result at all for the big Cadillac. That was the end of that adventure, so we went on to another, with races such as Flabbergames and Reckless Chair. The first race around Bajío de Plano didn't go at all that well, with a rather average 5th place finish at the end, and next up was the brilliant Look Out circuit, which was a slight improvement to 3rd, after a long debate about the new Forza terms of service, particularly the bit about stream sniping. And finally we went to Junas Blancas, racing against not only Flabbergames, but also Laudable Elf. This race consisted of a very interesting diversion from the Subaru through some crowds, and another rather average result of 7th after an ambitious move around the outside of somebody at the corner, which put me in the shed, as you might expect. So that was a slightly disappointing end to trying out the car with this tune. So let's go a bit mad, throw a massive V8 in it, and then see what it's like after that. So, like I say, with the big engine out of the CT5 dropped in it, it did have a few PI left over, so I've filled that up by upgrading some of the track widths a little bit, mainly for visual purposes, not because I think that's much of an improvement. Increased the width of the tyres by 1, and squeezed in a race flywheel, so nothing too significant, so essentially we've just dropped the engine in. I think on the CT5 all I did is the track width before we took it into online, so it's very similar to that. It should have the same power but slightly less weight, so let's see how it does. Okay, now this car makes sense with it. Listen. It's like the CT5. It's just as mad, but in a smaller, more handlingable package. In theory, we'll find out in a second. Okay, first race is Estadio, not bad at all. One track that I do particularly like. As you can see, I've resprayed it slightly in the other manufacturer colour I particularly like, and given it silver wheels, because I think that adds such a class to the appearance of this car. Right. Somebody's missed a checkpoint. Somebody's missed the corner. This does also feel a little bit slippery, rather unsurprisingly, but that's kind of to be expected with an engine like that. But it's not too bad, actually, compared to the other tune. It's slightly more refined, I think, but both of them were a little bit loose at the back, so... That was, of course, on rally tyres. This is on stock tyres, which I think actually means I probably have more grip from those. Anyway, so far so good. Oh no, 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 Thanks to the unique way Forza's slowdown system works, I think that's the end of that. The rest of that race was a disaster, unfortunately. Anyway, the final one in that adventure was the Copper Canyon, which went somewhat better even with a bit of touring car contact, and most of the race me actually holding a pack up, it felt like at least. It seemed to be a swarm of cars every time I looked back. The next adventure was exactly the same tracks, starting at the Chihuahua circuit, which predictably resulted in quite a low finish, although it was a lot of fun. I had a great battle with the Nissan over not being last, basically. So back to Estadio for the second race of that series, which I managed to mess up even worse than last time by not braking for a corner and then missing a checkpoint. And finally we were back to the Copper Canyon again, which didn't go well at all. I was slightly murdered off a bridge by the Nissan, which was a shame really, because I'd had a great battle with that car in the first race, so it was a shame for it to end by being pushed off a bridge after that. Anyway, as for my tune, it's obviously not as good as the previous one, being much less successful for me in the races, but surprisingly it felt pretty similar to me at least to drive, and was a lot closer to that tune than I thought it would be when I was making it. It is of course less purist with an engine swap, but I do like the idea of having that supercharged V8 in my four-door muscle car if I'm going to be driving a four-door muscle car. So yeah, stock it was a lot of fun. Smaller, lighter, if less powerful CT5-V, just without the great soundtrack. With a simple engine swap, it can be made into a smaller, lighter CT5-V with the V8 that we loved the sound of last time. Both A-Class tunes that I ran were a lot of fun and reasonably good for racing, but never going to be world-beating, with of course the Bard one being better than mine, but them being similar than I thought they would be when I was making one. I do just like the idea of having a racing V8 in it though, or a big V8 in it, however stupid, in my racing tune. So I think I'll stick with that, despite it maybe being slightly slower. Probably more than I thought, but anyway. Both were enjoyable, as I said. That though is going to be all. By the time this video is out, we probably already know next month's cars, but at the time of recording, the STO is the only known one, and the AMG GT Black Series is sort of guessed at. So I look forward to driving both of those and anything else that's new in the next series, so watch out for videos on those when they do come out. For now though, for a very first look at the Cadillac CT4-V, that is going to be all, so thank you very much for watching, and I will be back with the next video very soon.